Well, it's 4 p.m., it's dark, and it's raining. Welcome to Sweden in the fall. Guys, I obviously don't have control over this, but it is pretty crazy just how dreary it is. But that's not why you're watching the video. You're watching it to hear what I think about the 2025 Volvo XC90, an SUV that I don't necessarily think would still be built, at least with this refresh, except that public sentiment has shifted. Because don't forget, Volvo just launched the highly anticipated but kind of underdone EX90, the all-electric three-row SUV that's really a successor to the successful XC90. But given the way public sentiment has shifted towards electrification, I think Volvo called a bit of an audible and just gave a few updates to this SUV. Nothing is different about the powertrain, not that it necessarily needed any changes, but as you can see from the exterior, some subtle styling tweaks that I happen to really like, starting with this grille that is just fantastic. I love the way the pattern doesn't work well together, and yet it does. Those lines that play off of the Volvo logo, and then the other ones that are kind of running in contrast to them, super cool. The rest of it, pretty simple, just cleaned up overall. Really suits the proportions. Volvo has really mastered timeless design, and this emergency update, if you want to call it that, to the XC90 is proof this thing still looks great all these years later. Now, there are some new interior materials and colors available, but that's not the big story for the cabin. It's the infotainment system. It more closely reflects what Volvo is using in the smaller EX30 as well as that EX90. But the nice thing is, this hasn't gone all the way in that direction. Mainly the fact that this still has a more conventional instrument display instead of that tiny little one that's mounted directly to the steering column. Don't really love that. A little too future forward for my taste. This is a lot easier to use. It also is way more fully featured. You can even pull up a map display in here. And the good news is this is now a fully Google-based infotainment system, and that means your Google Maps is on the infotainment screen as well as in this instrument display. The infotainment, 11.2 inches, much bigger, brighter, easier to see. A bit of a cleaner layout overall, but the nice thing is there are still buttons down here below as well as that big volume dial. And then you get conventional controls down on this center console, including at least somewhat of a conventional gear selector. I've still never really come to love Volvo's execution, but it is not terrible here. This thing also has that little twist to start and stop the vehicle, which again takes some getting used to, but it's fine. And I like it a lot better than EVs where you get in and it automatically turns on, and then you get out and it turns off all on its own. Now, we should talk about the powertrains, and in Canada, there are still only two. There's the B6 as well as the T8 plug-in hybrid, and that is the one I'm driving. And a big battery pack that's under the tunnel of the vehicle. I know most plug-ins see those battery packs under the back seats. That is not the case here. It's meant to make the car feel more balanced, and I would say that is very much true here. Again, no changes overall, especially in terms of output, and the same goes with range. This thing is good for about 53 kilometers of all-electric driving. Not so bad, although it does put it a little bit behind its rivals, and considering this thing is updated, yes, I know not much has changed, but it would have been nice to see Volvo maybe stick a bigger battery pack in here to make it more competitive with something like the Mercedes-Benz GLE class that is now available as a plug-in hybrid that has something like 77 kilometers of range. Now, when it comes to the T8, you get 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque combined. And it really does help move this thing along very smoothly too. I will say, compared to the gas-only, the mild hybrid version, the transmission is just way smoother with those pulses of electrons. One complaint I have though, fuel efficiency. This thing is good to burn 8.9 liters per 100 kilometers combined, and I do wish it was just a little bit better, because that is creeping awfully close to the mild hybrid that we get, the B6 that we get in Canada, that uses that same 4-cylinder engine, just none of the electrical components, and it is good for 295 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. So yes, not as much output, and that is combined with more fuel burned. But the thing is, I would expect just a little bit more efficiency from a plug-in hybrid, because that B6 version is good for 10.4 liters per 100 kilometers combined. So you're really not saving that much at the pumps. And speaking of savings, don't expect to do much of it when you go to put your name down on the dotted line. But here is the problem. As I record this video, Volvo Canada has not announced pricing. So the only thing I can talk about is last year's price. And that is $82,500 for the B6 and about $99,500 for the T8. But here's the problem. Part of the sell down for Volvo Canada, those were only available in one trim. It is going back to the 3 trim lineup for both versions with this new one that I'm driving. And that means I really don't know how much it's going to cost, although I am going to go out on a limb and say it is going to be more expensive, and maybe even significantly so. Really disappointed I can't share pricing details with you guys, but I will say this is the same old Volvo XC90 in the best ways possible. This is still one of the best entries in the segment. It's smooth, it's comfortable, it's spacious, and it's stylish. Add in the safety that Volvo's known for, and I am happy to see this thing live on for at least a few more years.